All right, so we got a pretty massive news story that has just dropped. It's basically a treasure trove of a bunch of different documents and financial information on some of the global elites, and basically outlining exactly how they avoid paying taxes and use all of these offshore tax havens to hide a lot of their most valuable assets. So this is being dubbed the Pandora Papers, okay? If you remember, the Panama Papers were also a famous series of leaked documents that were in a similar capacity exposing U.S. global elites, and you got to stick around to the end because honestly, the best and funniest part of this entire article, even though, it's not funny, we should be cracking down on this obviously, but the funniest part comes at the end of this because basically you're not going to see a lot of US elites mentioned in this group, and it's essentially because our tax system is completely fucked and lets them do whatever they want, so they don't really have to go to the same extent into these offshore tax havens. So without further ado, let's get a little bit into the details here. So Pandora Papers, the biggest ever leak of offshore data, exposes financial secrets of the rich and powerful. So the secret deals and hidden assets of some of the world's richest and most powerful people have been revealed in the biggest trove of leaked offshore data in history. So even bigger than the Panama Papers, branded the Pandora Papers. The cache includes 11.9 million files from companies hired by wealthy clients to create offshore structures and trusts in tax havens such as Panama, Dubai, Monaco, Switzerland, and the Cayman Islands. And they expose the secret offshore affairs of 35 world leaders, including current and former presidents, prime ministers, and heads of state. They also shine a light on the secret finances of more than 300 other public officials, such as government ministers, judges, mayors, and military generals in more than 90 countries. So this is pretty fucking gigantic, but they continue saying that more than 100 billionaires are featured in the leaked data, as well as celebrities, rock stars, and business leaders. Many use shell companies to hold luxury items such as properties and yachts, as well as incognito bank accounts, and there is even art ranging from looted Cambodian antiques to paintings by Picasso and murals by Banksy. So they're getting pretty creative here in how they are actually storing their wealth. But the Pandora Papers reveal the inner workings of what is a shadow financial world, providing a rare window into the hidden operations of a global offshore economy that enables some of the world's richest people to hide their wealth and in some cases pay little to no taxes. And the files were leaked to the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, the ICIJ, in Washington, and it shared access to the leaked data with select media partners including The Guardian, BBC Panorama, Le Monde, and The Washington Post, and more than 600 journalists have sifted through the files as part of the massive global investigation. So that's just a little bit of details in terms of exactly what this actually is, right? You got over 600 journalists digging into these files, the biggest leaked set of data that we have seen on this issue in history. So pretty gigantic shit here. And now let's get into some of the actual specifics of who is being implicated in this. So after more than 18 months analyzing the data in the public interest, The Guardian and other media outlets will publish their findings over the coming days, beginning with the revelations about the offshore financial affairs of some of the most powerful political leaders in the world. So this is just the beginning, all right? So this story that we are getting into and all of the examples we're about to talk about, this is just the beginning. They have not even gotten started yet. Again, it's the biggest financial leak of this sort in history. So obviously we're going to have many, many more stories that are going to come out and probably expose a lot more elites in addition to the ones that we are about to talk about. So first example here, they include the ruler of Jordan, King Abdullah II, who leaked documents reveal has amassed a secret $100 million property empire spanning Malibu, Washington, and London, so has assets essentially tied up here in the United States, including, and that's a $100 billion property empire, and this is a king of Jordan, okay? And the king declined to answer specific questions, but said that there was nothing improper about him owning properties via offshore companies. Jordan appeared to have blocked the ICIJ website on Sunday, hours before the Pandora Papers launched. So listen, if you're trying to act like you're not guilty here, right, your country probably would not have shut down access to this information, right? If you truly believe you didn't do anything wrong, then your country would not have completely banned people from seeing this. But we continue with another example here from Azerbaijan, as the files also show that Azerbaijan's ruling Aliyev family has traded close to 400 million, I believe that's euros, but I'm probably wrong about that, of UK property in recent years, and one of their properties was sold to the Queen's Crown Estate, which is now looking into how it came to pay 67 million to a company that operated as a front for the family that runs a country routinely accused of corruption. Okay, so literally implicating the Queen's Crown Estate, with some of these corrupt global motherfuckers as they are basically shifting around a bunch of resources and storing all of this hundreds of millions of dollars in wealth in real estate across the entire world, but specifically the UK and the US is what they primarily focus on in these in some of these examples here. But in UK property, 400 million in UK property implicating the Queen's Crown estate. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And it really does show you that, that famous old quote by George Carlin, "There's a big club and you ain't in it," really stands true. There is a big club. It is a global elitist cabal, if you want to even call it that, without getting conspiratorial and diving down a QAnon rabbit hole. I mean, this is like the actual global cabal that actually does exist, and they are basically working in coordination to hide a lot of their assets. But they continue saying that not everyone named in the Pandora Papers is accused of actual wrongdoing. The leaked files reveal that Tony and Sherry Blair saved $312,000 in property taxes when they purchased a London building partially owned by the family of a prominent Bahraini minister. And the former prime minister and his wife bought the $6.5 million office in Marylebone by acquiring a British Virgin Isles offshore company. While the move was not illegal, there is no evidence that the Blairs proactively sought to avoid property taxes. The deal highlights a loophole. So this is just one of those examples of a loophole, right? Even though it's not illegal, that doesn't make it right. Obviously, who is getting to write all of the laws in the UK? Who is getting to write all of the laws here in the United States? Well, it's the exact same rich elite assholes who are finding these loopholes for themselves, okay? When you get to write the laws, then you don't really get to make the argument of, well, it was technically legal, so therefore it's not bad. It's like, no, you guys are the ones writing these terrible and ridiculous laws and these loopholes that allow you to get away with this. So, that's not a justification by any stretch of the imagination. And just a couple more examples here. Ukraine's president, Zelensky, who was elected in 2019 on a pledge to clean up his country's notoriously corrupt and oligarch-influenced economy, is also named in the leak. And during the campaign, Zelensky transferred his 25% stake in an offshore company to a close friend who now works as the president's top advisors. And the files suggest Zelensky declined to comment, and it is unclear if he remains a beneficiary. And finally, Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, whom the U.S. suspects of having a secret fortune, does not appear in the files by name, but numerous close associates do, including his best friend from childhood, the late Peter Kolbin, whom critics have called a wallet for Putin's own wealth, and a woman the Russian leader was allegedly once romantically involved with. None of the respondents obviously responded to comments. That's not surprising. So we have a bunch of elites, right? A bunch of these politicians is who they are first focusing on. Again, we're going to get many, many more of these documents and these stories leaking over the next couple of weeks and months. But you're implicating a bunch of these global elitists, right? A bunch of these presidents and ministers and all of these people who are connected in high up governments that are extraordinarily corrupt. But the one thing that you don't see on this mention is many U.S. politicians. You don't see many U.S. elites. You don't see Jeff Bezos. You don't see any of these other people. And why is that? Well, some people have speculated that these secrets of documents basically may have been pushed out by the U.S. State Department in an effort to, make all of these other countries around the world look bad, make Vladimir Putin look bad, etc., etc. But the actual reality here, the more likely scenario, is that the U.S. tax system is so lenient and has so many loopholes and allows all of our U.S. elites here to do whatever the fuck they want with their assets that they don't even have to bother to the same extent as some of these other people to ship their money into these offshore accounts. Obviously, they still do to some extent, and those are loopholes that we should close. But the idea that the United States does not even have a firm enough tax system that these elites feel the need to go ship their money offshore says a lot. So just getting into that, the Pandora Papers also place a revealing spotlight on the offshore system itself in a development likely to prove embarrassing for the U.S. President Joe Biden, who has pledged to lead efforts internationally to bring transparency to the global financial system. The U.S. emerges from the leak as a leading tax haven. The files suggest that the state of South Dakota in particular is sheltering billions of dollars in wealth linked to individuals previously accused of serious financial crimes. Okay, so South Dakota is one of these tax havens, similar to how Panama was, or how the Cayman Islands were, or the British Virgin, etc. All of these other people, all these other places that we have typically thought of a bunch of U.S. elites shipping their resources overseas, now they don't even necessarily have to do that. They can just ship it to fucking South Dakota or Delaware. Okay, that's the reality. I mean, we literally have. And they put together a good video that I'll link down below that dives more into the details of this. But they literally have buildings in Delaware, in South Dakota, where it's a singular building that's tiny, right? And you'll have like dozens and dozens of billion-dollar companies that base their corporations there in order to avoid a bunch of taxes. And you see these buildings that are like, barely, a couple stories tall, and somehow they're housing dozens and dozens of billion-dollar corporations. And you're like, wow, this is either like, the most impressive corporate building in the entire country, country, or they're just fucking lying and they're just fucking scamming us out of the taxes that they actually owe. And that's actually the reality here. So South Dakota, as well as Delaware, which was has historically been a tax haven. So U.S. states are some of the biggest tax havens in the entire world. It's just absolutely ridiculous and laughable. And just to give you a perspective as to the amount that we're talking about here, at least $11.3 trillion in wealth is held offshore, according to a 2020 study by the Paris-based Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the OECD. So $11.3 trillion in wealth is being concealed from all of these different tax systems across the entire world and all of these different countries across the entire world. But here specifically in the United States, this shows us how broken our tax system is here domestically. Okay, we need to be closing these loopholes. We need to be cracking down on these billionaires and corporations who are getting away with murder. We also learned recently from that other recent leak, I forget what it was actually called, but we learned from that other massive leak that came out recently that here in the United States, all of our billionaires, all of our corporations pay essentially nothing in taxes. Okay, in many cases they literally pay nothing in taxes. Corporations like Amazon, billionaires like Warren Buffett and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, who pay lower effective tax rates than their secretaries. Okay, it's a completely backwards and disgusting system, and this is just going to be giving us more and more of an insight into how this actual global elitist network essentially is hiding their wealth from all of these different tax systems across the entire world and basically screwing over the rest of the world